All right, Joe Bruin here with All Access Entertainment. We're here with the legendary Lawrence Elig. It's TerrorCast, one of my personal favorite vendors each and every year here. Just incredible work from top to bottom. It's the 10th anniversary of Rhode Island Comic Con, so it's a big deal. What have your experiences been like thus far at Comic Con over the years, and anything in particular stand out from this year's con?
Well, a lot of friendly people, a lot of collectors, and very popular. It's grown considerably over the 10 years. That's it. Sometimes traffic gets a little heavy,
Right.
But it's a good show and very enjoyable. And I also enjoyed their other show, TerraCon, which I'm going to be doing next year.
Yeah, TerraCon announced as a return, this time to Massachusetts.
Yeah, I'm a big monster person, so I fit right in there.
Excellent. Hope to be there for that. And of course, TerrorCast, you've got a variety of just these unbelievable hand-sculpted statues here. And, last time we caught up with you, you had kind of told us about how long it takes roughly to make one and kind of a little bit of what goes into it. How about on the inspiration side? What inspires you to do a certain character or, some ideas moving forward?
Well, I kind of take an attitude is, what do I really like? Being in the toy business or theme park, you were always working for a company and you were, they would use your strong points, but I tried to make this more, what do I really like? And I grew up with all the old monster movies, Universal and AIP and Hammer, and were the ones that I really like, even really obscure things like Peter Lorre on Stranger on the Third Floor, Dick Smith's picture of Dorian Gray makeup is great, Lon Chaney from Phantom of the Opera and Boris Karloff, Mask of Fu Manchu. So I just, because I love the work so much, I wanted to make some things that I started in Cincinnati, and there used to be a show called, and it's still going very big, in Louisville, Kentucky, called Wonder Fest. And they would sell resin kits. So I was making resin kits to sell there. And the trouble was, most of my stuff was very large, so the molds were taking over my house. So in later years, I decided to, when I learned about doing cold cast bronzes, which all these are, I started, I thought, well, the best thing to do is downsize them. So I made bust and sort of collectible figures, maybe 7 to 10 inches high, so it weren't so massive. And I just started doing, what did I really like, what were the movies, or what characters, like I have a Lizzie Porton here. Being in Rhode Island, she's very popular, so I wanted to do something for the ladies. Also, Vampira, the first horror host from the 50s. So that was another inspiration. I always liked Tor Johnson. He was a wrestler that did a lot of cheesy monster films. But even things like American International and the drive-in movies, Invasion of the Saucerman. And of course you've got your classics like Creature from the Black Lagoon, which has always been a real favorite, or Andy Devine's a show that was in the 50s, Froggy the Magic Gremlin, which I love. So Curse of the Werewolf, Oliver Reed, and probably the coolest werewolf film ever made. Lon Chaney, London After Midnight, a fantastic makeup, and it's a lost film. Over here, Ray Harryhausen's The Yammer from 20 Million Miles to Earth. And, those sort of things are classic ones, Frankenstein and Dracula. and the Wolfman. So,
Excellent. Just beautiful pieces.
Yeah.
And you've been a part of so many different toy lines over the years.
Yeah,
You've
like Star Wars, that sort of Yoda, or Bib Fortuna. You know, those are some of the. I always like the monsters the best, though. From Star Wars, the canteen scene with the werewolf. I sculpted the werewolf later years for the canteen scenes on Star Wars. But I worked on a lot on Aliens and Predator, Beetlejuice, and that was all. In Jurassic Park, I loved doing the dinosaurs. I worked on the first 3 movies, so long history there. And I love superheroes too. Did a lot of Batman items.
excellent. And for Beetlejuice toy line, that was quite the popular toy line for quite a while.
Yeah.
Still pretty sought after.
Yeah.
Can you shed some light on that toy line? What it involved? What it entailed?
Well, at the start, they did make a cartoon show, or try to. I don't know if it lasted. And they were trying to make a decision: do we make it after the movie or make it the cartoon series? And I personally am glad they went after the movie, because the cartoon series, I don't think, did particularly well. So it's sort of like Ghostbusters. Do we make it like the cartoon show or make it like the movie? And they went after the cartoon series. So on Beetlejuice, I worked on quite a few of them. I did the big Beetlejuice mask where you put it on, and you have a creature device that you can activate, and there would be in his hair a headpiece, and the 3 monsters would pop up. So I did that. Shipwreck, Beetlejuice, also Shish Kebab, and 2 of my favorite were never released, which was the Archaeologist Beetlejuice and Fireman Beetlejuice, where you switched it and you would one head was a fireman, Beetlejuice in the fireman's helmet. The other one was his Beetlejuice as a fire hydrant. And you pull the legs together, and the hands were like this, and they would hit the side of his mouth. Now the head was rotomolded. You'd fill it with water. So when the hands came like this, his mouth puckered and he would shoot out water. So that was fun.
So something like that doesn't, say, get released, it just gets scrapped as an idea. Why does something like that happen? And
because it was supposed to be released. The problem is if sales don't meet, if they drop off, then they will cancel the line. And that even happened with Star Wars in the 80s. They cancel it, but before it's canceled, we might be working on the 2nd or 3rd year. So these were items that were sculpted and designed that they just dropped because they didn't want to, because tooling's so expensive, they didn't want to go any further, cut their losses. And that happens one heck of a lot. They take risk on certain lines, and they're not all successful. Like, we had lines like Hug a Bunch, which didn't do particularly well, or Capital Critters, that sort of stuff. Even the very first Alien, the large figure, was a bust. It was one of the best looking toys of all time, but it didn't sell well. So most of them ended up in warehouses and storage. Now when you buy them, they're really expensive, because they're so sought after.
And have you kept a lot of the stuff that you've made over the years or been a part of over the years? Do you have this, massive collection of your work, or?
Just packaged items, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, you'd get a sample of that, from the company, or you could buy it at their toy stores. I remember we used to have a great toy store And I remember early on going there, and they would have, you know, shelves full of superpowers, you know, DC characters, and early Star Wars. And had I known it, they would be so valuable. Now these were just tons of everything. I would have just boxed them up and put them in storage.
Right. You never know with toys, you know.
Well, just like comic books. You just don't know what's going to be the hot thing in the future. It seems like everything is, you know, the store, our toys we did, especially in the blister. If, you know, the kids that had enough sense to buy one and keep it in the blister and play with the other one, if they were able to store it, you know, they're very valuable now.
Sure.
But most at the time, nobody knew that they would be collectible.
Right. And you mentioned Star Wars. What was your involvement in that toy line? Anybody in particular?
I was basically an in-house sculptor, and the manager delegated to his staff and outside vendors different figures to work on. And when I started doing that, I worked on a lot of the micros, and you know, did a number of those. As for especially the last film I worked on, did the original Emperor, worked on the Gromorian Guard, Jabba the Hutt place set, Cloud 2, Luke and Stormtrooper outfit. So I worked on a number of more too. You know, it's when you finish one and got it approved, and you're still working on a line, you were signed another one. The sculpting manager delegated the work out, and if they had to, they would ship it to very competent toy sculptors around the country. So that's usually, and they did that with every line. Sure. Batman, Jurassic Park. As the years went on, I had a lot more involvement, especially with lines like Aliens and Predator and Jurassic Park. I was the sculpting manager for a number of years, and had to get licensor approval on Batman and Jurassic Park, Titan AE, just the lines like that.
Sure.
Pokemon, yeah.
Now, so many sculptures like this. In closing, is there anything that you haven't sculpted yet that you would love to do, but you just haven't gotten to it yet, or kind of?
That's all the time.
Yeah.
Like on the Curse of the Werewolf, this one here, I wanted to do more of a full figure, like I've done with a few others, small toy size. It's sort of like a resin kit where the scene when the movies, he's in a cell with the hermit, and he turns into the werewolf, and I wanted to do one sort of like a Frazetta painting, where he's got him picked up over his head, he's about ready to throw it. Yeah. So a big action pose. Another one, Tarzan fighting a gorilla, maybe having the gorilla over his head, about ready to throw him too. More Frazetta oriented, a lot of action to it.
Sure.
I like also H.P. Lovecraft, Cthulhu, like he's on a old pedestal and he's hunched over about ready to attack, and his wings are about ready to fly off too. A lot of Lovecraft stuff I would like to do, some of those type of monsters.
Sure.
I have a number of like Lord of the Rings type characters, gorillas, a lot of gorilla things, dinosaur, maybe a big gorilla fighting Godzilla or a T-Rex, action pose where they're engaged in combat.
And do you take requests from fans too, or?
Well, the problem is I do freelance, but to do the prototype is what is very expensive. Once you make molds and you can mass produce them, it brings the cost down. That's why I sell, ones that I have molds on that I can make copies of. But to do a prototype, That's where all the real work is. And I have to charge more because it's so labor intensive,
Sure.
as it is making action figures or any commercial sculpting.
And where can fans find you?
Well, mainly at the conventions. I do have a website, lawrenceelig.com. I do order, or you can order certain things like ones without the arms. I really don't want to ship out an item with arms on it or hands and small parts, because shipping it in the mail, they don't handle them very well, and they always break them. But just something simple like a head or a bust, I usually am confident that they can't be damaged. So I will ship items, but only certain ones.
Well, Lawrence, thank you so much for taking the time today. It's the 10th anniversary of Rhode Island Comic Con. Enjoy day 3, and it was our pleasure. Lawrence Elig with TerraCast, ladies and gentlemen.